Personality NLP Astrology case study for Keith. Since Keith has Swati rising in Libra as his ascendant, he likely moves through the world with a graceful, independent, and negotiation-minded core. Swati, ruled by Rahu and symbolized by the blade of grass bending in the wind, carries themes of adaptability, movement, and refinement through flexibility. Libra already brings diplomacy, aesthetic awareness, and a strong relational lens, but Swati adds a streak of independence. Keith likely values personal freedom just as much as connection, and may prefer to move at his own rhythm even in social settings. There's a sense of quiet internal experimentation in his nature. He observes, calibrates, and shifts until the external matches his internal balance. From an NLP lens, this ascendant suggests a blend of visual and auditory digital processing. Keith likely responds to how things appear, style, tone, energy, but also tests everything through inner logic. Does it make sense? Is it aligned? He likely avoids emotional excess and instead moves through the world with calm precision, using grace and tact to move through complexity without confrontation. His attention filter is self-oriented. While he considers others, his decisions are ultimately guided by how things affect his own balance, values, and autonomy. He's not easily pulled into groupthink and is likely cautious with emotional merging. His motivation direction leans away from when confronted with discord, codependency, or energetic entanglement. Keith prefers to create space, recalibrate, and re-enter with clarity, rather than remain in chaos. In the 6th house, Keith has Ketu placed in Uttara Bhadrapada in Pisces, an introspective, spiritually charged configuration for his daily routines, self-discipline, and service-oriented efforts. The 6th house deals with our approach to work, wellness, habits, problem-solving, and how we manage subtle friction in life. Ketu here lends a detachment from traditional systems. Keith likely doesn't conform to standard work structures or routines. Instead, he seeks a quieter, more intuitive path to self-improvement, one rooted in subtle clarity rather than force. Uttara Bhadrapada, ruled by Saturn, is a deep mystical nakshatra, associated with compassion, inner anchoring, and spiritual endurance. Ketu in this zone brings past life mastery around emotional boundaries, service, and detachment. Keith may have a strong inner code about how he serves others, but without a need for praise or attention. He does the inner work because it feels right, not because it's expected. From an NLP perspective, this points to a dissociated, auditory digital, and general chunking style. He zooms out, assesses patterns, and focuses on underlying energetic structures more than surface tasks. His motivation direction here is clearly away from, not as avoidance, but as purification. He instinctively senses when environments, habits, or relationships are energetically off, and quietly begins to retreat, simplify, or heal through inner refinement. His work preference is likely solo. He processes best in solitude, values privacy, and isn't likely to thrive in chaotic or overly extroverted work settings. His service comes through quiet impact, subtle problem solving, and energy that clears without needing credit. Altogether, Keith's Swati Ascendant and Ketu in Uttara Bhadrapada point to a personality built on calm observation, inner calibration, and selective engagement. He refines rather than reacts, edits rather than explodes, and is constantly aligning his inner and outer worlds through clarity, detachment, and subtle spiritual discipline. His NLP style shows someone who values what's elegant, what's clean, and what makes internal sense, and who filters life through a lens of self-honoring balance and precision. 7th house, Mercury in Ashwini and Sun in Kritika Aries. In the 7th house, Keith has Mercury in Ashwini and the Sun in Kritika, both in Aries, an energetic, fast-moving, and mentally charged configuration for how he approaches relationships, partnerships, and one-on-one dynamics. The 7th house governs how we connect, mirror, and commit to others, and with 2 fiery planets in this domain, both in pioneering Nakshatras, Keith likely engages with others through directness, clarity, and a need for momentum. He values independence within connection, and likely feels most alive in relationships that spark action, movement, and honest engagement. Mercury in Ashwini, ruled by Ketu and symbolized by twin horse heads, brings quick thought, rapid response, and a sharp, instinctual intelligence into relational exchange. Keith's communication style in partnerships is likely immediate and unfiltered. He says what's true in the moment, often before overthinking it. He may prefer clean, forward-facing dialogue and doesn't linger long in emotional complexity unless it leads to a solution. From an NLP perspective, this Mercury placement reflects a visual and auditory digital processing style with specific chunking. He notices detail, reacts quickly to verbal cues, and likely needs space to explore and respond freely in conversations without feeling trapped or talked over. The Sun in Kritika, ruled by the Sun and symbolized by the sharp blade, adds strength, discernment, and pride to his relational identity. Keith likely brings confidence, integrity, and high standards into his partnerships, not just for the other, but for himself. He wants relationships that are clean, expressive, and purpose-driven. Kritika cuts away what's false, and in Aries, this shows up as fierce clarity. He's unlikely to tolerate manipulation or passivity in others. His connections must be transparent, vital, and mutually strengthening. This Sun placement reflects a kinesthetic and auditory digital NLP style. He tracks not only what's said, but how it's said, and whether it lands with embodied truth. His attention filter in the 7th house is sharply self-oriented, though not selfish. He evaluates others through how well the dynamic supports his autonomy, clarity, and purpose. There's a subtle quality control process in how he relates. His partnerships must be as intentional and well-paced as the rest of his system. His motivation direction here is strongly away from indecision, emotional confusion, or overly dependent dynamics. But when a relationship feels clean, inspired, and anchored in mutual drive, he moves towards with full presence and loyalty. Altogether, Mercury in Ashwini and the Sun in Kritika give Keith a relational profile that is fast, bold, and exacting. He's not here to merge without meaning. He's here to meet others clearly, move with purpose, and refine connection through direct expression. His NLP imprint in this house reflects someone who listens sharply, speaks with instinct, and engages only when there is truth in motion. He doesn't just want relationships, he wants right relationships, where action, clarity, and self-honor are alive and mutual. 8th house, Venus in Mrigashira. In the 8th house, Keith has Venus placed in Mrigashira in Taurus, a sensual, curious, and emotionally intelligent configuration that deeply influences his relationship to intimacy, transformation, trust, and energetic merging. The 8th house governs the unseen layers of life: emotional entanglement, shared resources, vulnerability, and psychological depth. With Venus here, the planet of connection, aesthetics, and harmony, Keith likely approaches intimacy with a blend of caution, intrigue, and refinement. He's drawn to emotional and sensual depth, but only when it feels stable, beautiful, and well-paced. Mrigashira, ruled by Mars and symbolized by the deer's head, brings curiosity, restlessness, and gentle searching. In Taurus, this nakshatra becomes earthy, slow to open, and rooted in sensual intelligence. Keith's relational style in intimate dynamics is likely warm and receptive, but also observant and discerning. He needs to feel the safety and consistency of someone before revealing deeper layers. Venus in this position makes him emotionally generous and tuned into subtle shifts, yet he may withhold parts of himself until full trust is earned. From an NLP perspective, this reflects a kinesthetic and visual processing style, with a preference for specific chunking. He reads body language, tone, and texture, and remembers the details that others may miss. His attention filter in intimate dynamics is self-oriented, especially when it comes to emotional security and energetic compatibility. He doesn't merge quickly. He watches, senses, and lets closeness unfold organically. There's also an away from motivation direction here. Keith instinctively distances himself from energetic clutter, emotional volatility, or environments that feel invasive or dissonant. But when a bond feels grounded, subtle, and emotionally reciprocal, he shifts towards with soft focus and loyal depth. Venus in Taurus in the 8th also gives him a private, almost sacred relationship to sensuality. He may not flaunt his emotional or physical desires, but they run deep and steady. Emotional intimacy for him isn't about grand declarations. It's about quiet presence, shared trust, and the beauty of consistency. He likely appreciates emotional intelligence expressed through actions, not just words. Altogether, Venus in Mrigashira in the 8th house gives Keith a transformative style of love, one that seeks depth, but only when the foundation is real. His NLP imprint here reflects someone who tracks intimacy through the senses, protects his emotional layers with care, and values connection that is both emotionally resonant and energetically clean. He's not here for shallow merging. He's here for refined depth, the kind that unfolds quietly, honestly, and without force. Ninth house, Moon and Jupiter in Ardra. In the ninth house, Keith has the Moon and Jupiter conjunct in Ardra in Gemini, a configuration that shapes his worldview, belief systems, learning style, and long-term philosophical direction with deep emotional intelligence and sharp mental clarity. The ninth house governs higher education, truth-seeking, ethics, and spiritual purpose. With both the Moon and Jupiter, two planets of emotional and philosophical expansion, placed in Ardra, this becomes a path of intensity, intellectual challenge, and emotional transformation through knowledge. Ardra, ruled by Rahu and symbolized by a teardrop or storm cloud, is a nakshatra of radical honesty, mental brilliance, and deep emotional processing. In Gemini, it sharpens the intellect while unearthing emotional truths, often through intense internal questioning. The Moon in Ardra makes Keith emotionally perceptive, but private. He likely absorbs a great deal from his environment and learns best through emotionally charged experiences that force him to reevaluate his assumptions. Emotion and intellect are tightly interwoven. He processes feeling through thinking and thinking through feeling. Jupiter in Ardra adds mental expansiveness and a kind of emotional resilience to Keith's philosophical framework. He doesn't take beliefs at face value. He deconstructs, questions, and challenges until what's left is something he can trust. There may be a lifelong pattern of seeking truth by first confronting what's false. From an NLP perspective, this Moon-Jupiter conjunction supports a dissociated and auditory digital processing style with specific chunking. Keith likely breaks big ideas down into fine detail, processing through precise language, tone, and mental frameworks before accepting something as true. His attention filter in this area is strongly self-oriented. He filters teachings, ideologies, and experiences through his own logic and emotional resonance. He's not easily persuaded by authority or tradition unless they pass his internal standard. His motivation direction in the ninth house leans away from confusion, illusion, or mental rigidity, and strongly towards systems of thought that allow for honesty, change, and deeper coherence. He may be skeptical of surface-level positivity or performative spirituality, needing instead the raw, the real, and the rigorously thought through. There is also a quiet emotional courage in this placement. Ardra doesn't avoid discomfort. It moves through storms to reach clarity. Keith may be drawn to unconventional teachings, shadow work, or transformative philosophies that require emotional transparency. He learns through dismantling and reconstructing, not just intellectually, but psychically. Altogether, the Moon and Jupiter in Ardra in the ninth house give Keith a belief system shaped by emotional truth, intellectual independence, and a constant search for deeper meaning. His NLP imprint here reveals a thinker and feeler who filters information through both logic and emotional resonance, seeks not comfort but coherence, and uses learning as a form of personal transformation. He's not here to believe, he's here to know, in a way that both his heart and mind can stand behind. 10th house, Mars in Ashlesha, Cancer. In the 10th house, Keith has Mars placed in Ashlesha in Cancer, a placement that gives him a quietly strategic, emotionally charged, and energetically perceptive approach to career, leadership, and public identity. The 10th house governs visibility, professional drive, and the role we're known for in the world. With Mars here, Keith has ambition, but it may not look conventional. He doesn't chase attention or dominate spaces overtly. Instead, his drive comes from emotional instinct, psychic intelligence, and a desire to protect or transform through influence that's subtle but penetrating. Ashlesha, ruled by Mercury and symbolized by the serpent, is a nakshatra of intuition, energetic coiling, and hypnotic influence. In Cancer, this nakshatra becomes emotionally potent and protective. Mars in Ashlesha gives Keith the ability to sense what's happening beneath the surface in public or professional spaces. He likely has strong instincts about timing, tone, and what moves to make or not make in high-stakes environments. There's a deep emotional logic behind his ambitions, and he may act more from psychic reading than from outward strategy. From an NLP perspective, Mars in Ashlesha supports kinesthetic and auditory digital processing style with specific chunking. Keith likely processes his professional interactions through felt energy, tension, subtext, emotional charge, and uses internal dialogue to assess whether something feels aligned or manipulative. He may move cautiously but decisively, trusting his gut above external pressure. His energy and leadership is magnetic, not loud, but compelling, capable of influencing without pushing. His attention filter in career is self-oriented, though he remains highly tuned to the energy around him. He processes success on his own terms, not by status alone, but by emotional control, integrity, and the ability to move through complex dynamics with power and poise. His motivation direction in this domain is a strong away from, particularly when it comes to environments that feel coercive, emotionally toxic, or energetically off. Yet when the space is emotionally intelligent, or the mission meaningful, he moves towards with quiet intensity and deep commitment. This Mars placement can also give him a protectiveness over his public work. He may be careful about what he shares, how he appears, and who gets access to his energy. There's often a desire to work behind the scenes or to influence through mastery rather than visibility. Altogether, Mars in Ashlesha in the 10th house gives Keith a public presence that is emotionally strategic, energetically attuned, and quietly authoritative. His NLP imprint here reflects someone who filters ambition through energy, leads with instinct, and succeeds not through domination, but through precision, presence, and subtle command. He's not here to be seen, he's here to move energy, and in doing so, reshape the field. 11th house, Saturn in Maga, Leo. In the 11th house, Keith Hattern placed in Maga in Leo, a placement that gives him a strong, steady, and quietly authoritative approach to long-term goals, group dynamics, and social contribution. The 11th house governs alliances, vision for the future, community, and how we build or belong to networks. With Saturn here, Keith likely feels a sense of karmic responsibility in how he engages with collectives. He may not join easily or casually, but once committed, he brings endurance, structure, and a dignified presence to any shared endeavor. Maga, ruled by Ketu and symbolized by the royal throne, is a nakshatra of lineage, dignity, and legacy. In Leo, it becomes bold, principled, and proud. But with Saturn here, this energy is channeled through discipline rather than display. Keith may take a leadership role in group settings, but without needing the spotlight. His contribution comes from holding things together, enforcing quiet order, and ensuring that group values align with purpose and integrity. He often functions as the stabilizer, the one who brings long-term thinking to visionary spaces. From an NLP perspective, this Saturn placement supports an auditory digital and dissociated processing style with general chunking. Keith likely engages with networks and future goals through internal logic and principled filtering. He sees the bigger picture, but checks every opportunity against legacy, longevity, and alignment. He may process conversations around contribution or community more as strategic architecture than emotional collaboration. He wants the structure to mean something, not just to exist. His attention filter here is self-oriented, especially when it comes to discerning who and what he aligns with long-term. He may observe group dynamics quietly at first, assessing power structures, integrity, and purpose before stepping in. His motivation direction in the 11th is primarily away from superficial collectives, performative movements, or chaotic group dynamics. He's unlikely to stay involved in anything that feels ego-driven or disorganized. But when a collective is worthy, rooted, focused, value-aligned, he moves towards with patience and unwavering consistency. This placement also suggests that Keith's goals take time to manifest, but when they do, they are durable and substantial. He doesn't scatter his energy, he builds. His visions for the future are not about speed or volume, but about legacy, respect, and quiet impact. Altogether, Saturn in Maga in the 11th house gives Keith a contribution style rooted in structure, principle, and long-term integrity. His NLP imprint here reflects someone who filters community through honor, builds networks with strategy, and sees the future not as fantasy, but as something to be earned through careful, calibrated presence. He's not here for noise. He's here to establish what lasts. 12th house, Rahu in Hasta, Virgo. In the 12th house, Keith has Rahu placed in Hasta in Virgo, a placement that gives him a karmic pull toward refinement, control, and precision in the hidden, unconscious, and spiritual layers of life. The 12th house governs solitude, retreat, dreams, the subconscious mind, and the subtle dissolving of ego boundaries. With Rahu here, Keith is drawn to explore these invisible realms, but with the analytical edge of Virgo and the skillful, symbol-rich nature of Hasta, he approaches the mystical not with abstraction, but with intention and structure. He's not just escaping into the unseen, he's trying to organize it. Hasta, ruled by the moon and symbolized by an open hand, is associated with skill, control, and the ability to shape outcomes through subtle mastery. In Virgo, this nakshatra becomes practical, service-oriented, and acutely detail-focused. With Rahu here, Keith is likely pulled toward understanding the subconscious through systems, routines, or body-based practices. He may be fascinated by the mechanics of healing, the invisible patterns behind behavior, or the fine-tuned balance between order and surrender. There's a karmic drive to bring form to the formless, to process unconscious material through tangible tools. From an NLP perspective, this Rahu placement supports a dissociated and auditory digital processing style, with a strong preference for specific chunking. Keith likely processes his inner world in high resolution, breaking down dreams, instincts, or subtle patterns into systems he can work with. He may be drawn to somatic disciplines, therapeutic models, or subconscious mapping techniques that give his inner life edges and clarity. Rather than getting lost in emotion, he seeks to name, label, and work with it. His attention filter in this house is very self-oriented. The 12th house is always private, but with Rahu here in Virgo, he becomes especially focused on personal purification, refinement, and understanding his own unconscious landscape. His motivation direction is a blend. He moves away from energetic clutter, inefficiency, or emotional overwhelm, and strongly towards quiet systems of internal mastery. He may spend significant time refining his spiritual or emotional hygiene, often alone, and often in deeply personal ways. This placement can also make Keith particularly sensitive to the energetic field. He might pick up subtle signals from people or environments and then internally analyze or organize them without fully realizing it. Solitude for him isn't just restful, it's necessary for internal clarity. The deeper his alone time, the more effectively he can process, reset, and translate the ineffable into something usable. Altogether, Rahu in Hasta in the 12th house gives Keith a spiritually investigative nature, one that seeks order within mystery and clarity within the unconscious. His NLP imprint here reflects someone who doesn't just experience the inner world. He studies it, shapes it, and refines it with skilled perception. He's not here to dissolve into chaos. He's here to bring light to it, one insight, one system, and one quiet moment at a time. Overall NLP drives for Keith. Keith's NLP profile reveals a psyche built around precision, privacy, and inner discernment. With planetary placements in nakshatras like Swati, Ashwini, Kritika, Mrigashira, Ardra Hasta, Magha, Ashlesha, Uttara Bhadrapada, and Vishaka, spanning signs from Libra, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Pisces, his mind functions with a unique blend of strategic logic and subtle energetic intelligence. He processes through filters of clarity, elegance, and internal control, not just over outcomes, but over his own attention and energy. He doesn't react, he refines. His dominant processing styles are auditory digital, kinesthetic, and visual. The auditory digital style shows up most in his Libra Ascendant, Virgo placements, Mercury and Rahu, and 9th house planets in Ardra. Keith analyzes first. He runs inner logic loops to test meaning, checks language for coherence, and mentally tracks nuance. At the same time, his kinesthetic intelligence is strong, particularly in his Mars, Ashlesha, Venus, Mrigashira, and Moon placements, giving him an instinctive body-based radar for emotional integrity and energetic shifts. He knows when something feels off, even if it looks fine. The visual layer complements this by tuning him to aesthetics, micro-expression, and the elegance of form, especially in how he expresses and perceives clarity. Keith's chunking style moves between specific and general, depending on domain. In intimate, interpersonal, and professional settings, he uses specific chunking, breaking things down, noticing subtle shifts in tone, and mentally cataloging detail. But when it comes to beliefs, vision, or solitude, he moves into general chunking, seeing systems, archetypes, and long-range insight. He's a pattern tracker who can move from micro to macro fluidly, but never without intention. His motivation direction leans heavily away from, especially in the 6th, 8th, and 12th houses. He instinctively moves away from energetic messiness, emotional noise, and unclear intentions. This isn't about avoidance, it's about energetic hygiene. When something feels misaligned, Keith clears space. But he also has a strong towards component, especially in intellectual, relational, and career-based domains. He moves toward order, internal consistency, self-knowledge, and skillful self-expression, not for approval, but for alignment. His attention filter is primarily self-oriented, especially in areas involving emotional, spiritual, or philosophical depth. He checks everything through an inner system of resonance. Still, he's not disconnected from others. His Libra Ascendant, along with planets in Leo and Gemini, gives him social finesse and relational intelligence. He just won't sacrifice internal truth for external harmony. Keith's action style is calculated, subtle, and internal timing based. With Mars in Ashlesha and Saturn in Maga, he doesn't rush. He waits until his body and mind agree, then acts with calm certainty. Others may not see his process, but they feel his clarity when he finally moves. His decisions are rarely impulsive. They're the end result of quiet tracking, deep sensing, and inner readiness. Altogether, Keith's NLP architecture is rooted in discernment, precision, and emotional sovereignty. He doesn't perform, he processes. He doesn't follow trends, he builds quiet clarity. His presence is composed, perceptive, and strategic. He listens beneath the surface, filters before responding, and only engages where energy, logic, and inner truth align. He's not here for noise. He's here for clear signals, filtered through depth, delivered with intention, and backed by a calm, unwavering center.